Courage Center, our mission is to empower people with disabilities to realize their full potential in every aspect of their life.
When Rachel enters the room, she lights up the room. I mean, she's very easy to communicate with. She comes with a question. She's reaching behind her back for that communication board, and here she is, armed and dangerous, ready to have a conversation with you.
The people who work with me are able to communicate with me by email and using my adaptive communication systems. And I am able to joke around with all the staff. They get my sense of humor. They are playful and patient.
Rachel is fiercely independent and refuses to be defined by her disability. It is very, very important for her to be independent. She comes monthly to help me with volunteer orientation as a disability awareness speaker.
Though I have disabilities, I am a person who is give back. That is partly because courage is helping to be my healthiest, best self. It is for my self-esteem to give back, and I hope it will benefit other people overcome challenges like I have.
She gets to say, yeah, this is what this place is for. I am the person that this place is for. You are the person that this place is for, and you now get to know me. And it kind of finishes all the circles.
I think Rachel's independence has really been driven by Rachel.
Courage helps me with my self-esteem. I look at life differently. When I see people who face challenges that are more difficult than mine, I am thankful that I could decide a lot of choices for myself.
Because she's done so many things, she's able to show that people with disabilities can sort of do whatever they want with some adaptive equipment and a little practice, and so she's a great way to introduce people to the organization, and people are really engaged with her pretty easily. She's got such a great personality.
I am able to be independent because of strategies I learned from therapists there. My social life is richer because of the many friendships with staff, volunteers, and fellow participants.
So I think providing resources to her to achieve her goals is sort of what Courage Center has provided her. In each new activity or new challenge that she's had, she's always asking questions here about how she can accomplish that next goal, and it seems like we've been able to have the answers for that.
Courage Center, to empower people with disabilities to realize their full potential in every aspect of their life.
So wonderful. I hope that we in these forums can do some celebrating and talk about the stories, the client experiences, the successes that our clients have, and that we have, as a way of reminding us, why are we working so hard? I mean, there's no doubt that we're in a challenging environment. We're working hard as an organization. And I think what keeps motivating everybody to keep working is being in touch with the purpose and what good we're doing for clients and with and for each other. So at the end of this, I hope that we will have time for people to share some more of the things that you're proud of. We've got a very full agenda. I'm going to go really fast. We're going to start off talking about the Strong Workplace Survey, which launches this Friday. Talk about just a couple of examples of the things we're accomplishing against our strategic initiatives for the year. Talk a little bit about how we're doing. We're now finished with the third quarter, which ended on June 30, so we're well into our last quarter of our fiscal year. How's it looking? And talk just for a second about the timeline and process for setting our 2013 goals. And then hope to leave plenty of time for you to certainly ask questions. I'm sure you have some. And also to offer up other examples of good stuff going on around the organization. So first, the Strong Workplace Survey. It's going to launch this Friday. It's going to be open for 2 full weeks, 3 weekends. This is the big major employee survey that we usually try to do about every 18 months. It's been a little longer since the last one, so it's an important time to really take a deeper organization-wide look to measure employee engagement. And doing it at the front end of the planning process is really important because we know how important employee engagement is to everything else we want to achieve. Client outcomes, satisfaction, our ability to make change and execute change in the organization. Employee engagement is a key underpinning of all of that. And we need to know, where are we doing well, where are we not, and what are the specific things that employees would like us to tackle in 2013. We'd really love to see 100% participation. The data is only as good as it is, representative truly of what people are thinking. There are 15 questions in the survey. We use something called this Strong Workplace Survey is a nationally normed instrument that has standardized questions that are written, precisely the same way, kind of on purpose, based on what the researchers have learned. So if you think certain questions are weird or weirdly worded, it's a tongue twister, just know that for the most part those they're written for a very specific reason. I think 12 of the questions are those sort of national norm questions. 3 of them are courage specific. There is one open-ended place for folks to say, I really want to tell you X. So the whole thing should be less than 10 minutes. So I really would hope that you will find time during these next couple of weeks to take the survey and encourage your colleagues to do so. I think our high water mark ever was 85% participation, but we'd really, really love to get to hear from everybody. So as we talk about how the year is going, I just want to kind of put it in the context that this isn't just about today, the third quarter, or just about 2012. We've been on and are on quite a journey that we've been on for several years to really make pretty big fundamental change in our organization and in our strategic plan for the future. We have spent the last several years trying to get ready for a very different future in terms of the environment around us and our role in that environment. We've known as a leadership team, and our boards have known probably for 20 years, and I'm not exaggerating that the fundamental economic model of Courage Center over the past 85 years was not going to work in the future. It's overly dependent on philanthropy at a time when philanthropy is shifting, and just too many things about the particular clients we serve, the particular services we do, given how backwards healthcare reimbursement is, given how social services are barely reimbursed at all. We've known for a long time that we had to do something different to create a secure future for our mission. So we started on this journey of assuming there was going to be a new economic model long before 2008 and the Great Recession, which knocked the whole system back several years. We still have not recovered all the assets that we lost in the market downturn, and philanthropic giving is still not back to where it was in 2007. That's not just true for us. That's true for the nonprofit sector in general. And now we know, the economists are all talking about, this is, we're all like, is the recession over? Are we getting back to normal? What they keep saying, and it's hard to get our brains around, is we're never getting back to what we thought of as normal. The economy just is structurally changing. It's more global. There's more downward pressure that we just are going to have to deal with. So the new normal, as people talk about it, is going to require really fundamental, systematic change, particularly in the healthcare sector and the human services sector. This whole interplay between government and the nonprofit sector and the private sector, we have only just begun to see sort of the, that, all things shaking out. But this is not news to us. We've known this. We're getting ready for that new normal. And we've been working all across the organization to try to get clearer about where are our priorities, where are our particular skill sets or innovations, what's unique about what we do, how do we get more efficient and effective, how do we really prove our outcomes. That's been work that the entire organization has been engaged in for at least 5 years and probably a lot longer. I think we're at the point now, even with a lot of challenge, where we have got tremendous opportunity to accelerate the achievement of our mission. And that's what it's most powerfully about at the end of the day, is how do we keep on doing for clients and for the community things like you saw in that video about Rachel. And that's what's important, is what we do, much more so than the specific mechanisms through which we have done it historically. So this is just our strategic initiatives grid for 2012. We've seen this before. We show it, kind of put it up at every forum. The 14 or 13 things that we're really trying to focus on strategically. We're just going to talk about a couple today. The other point of this slide is just the notion of a balanced, the balanced scorecard, if you will, the 4 quadrants being important. I mean, we're obviously very, very focused on profitable growth because our economics don't work. But we have to be equally focused on client outcomes, service excellence, and then operational performance. Somebody put us on hold, I think, here. Nope, now we're off. No, we're not. So I can keep talking over this, but I hope it's not interfering with others on the phone. And operational performance is really another how. How are we making the organization more proficient at doing what we do, and also more adaptable? Because if there's one thing we can know with confidence is that the change is a constant. It's not like we're ever going to say, oh, good, well, we got through that. Now we can just, coast for the next 10 years. It's just not the case anymore. So how good are we as an organization at adapting to change? So the things we're going to talk about today are just a couple of examples of these strategic initiatives. We're going to talk about Healthcare Home, and we're going to talk about the partnership strategy, because that's a very, very significant thing. The Healthcare Home not only affects kind of what's the future business, but really some wonderful, powerful outcomes stories to share there too. And of course, the budget performance is being significantly influenced by the bottom right corner, how much we're working to try to get more efficient as an organization. So a couple of the strategic initiatives to celebrate, and really these are incredible steps forward for the organization. The primary care clinic, also known as the Healthcare Home, which is a term in state law and in federal healthcare reform legislation. We opened this clinic a little over 2 years ago, decided to add primary care services here on site in Golden Valley. Someday we hope and intend for the Healthcare Home concept to be larger and to be serving more populations and more geographies. Today this is a Golden Valley clinic. We knew there was a big need in the community for disability-competent primary care. We've known for years that the clients that we see in any of the therapies or in ILS or in sports and rec or at camp struggle to get primary care in the sense of accessibility of the clinics, the equipment, and just the comfort level, the disability awareness and expertise of the providers that they're seeing. So we knew there was a community need here. We also believed powerfully that this fit our sweet spot in terms of our expertise in knowing about health for people with disabilities. Again, kind of through that picture that you saw of Rachel. We figured this was going to really be an important innovation, and it is. During the 2 years, 2.5 now that the clinic's been operating, we've had a total of 224 patients in the primary care clinic. There's about 190 active currently. This is really a model, a wonderful model of what everybody is talking about in healthcare reform, whether that's at the federal level or the state level. You hear, and you will hear more and more about the so-called triple aim. How do we lower cost, improve health, and improve client experience all at the same time? 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3 isn't good enough. For reform to succeed, it's got to do all of those things simultaneously. This clinic is doing that, and people are noticing. This is why we got the big award from the federal government, the Medicare and Medicaid agency, CMS. We were one of the first 26 innovation grants in the entire nation because of this clinic. And the results, not just the idea of it, but the results that it's producing. In these 2 years, we've been doing a lot of measurement of what's going on. The outcomes and research staff, partnering with the clinic staff, we were able to design this thing knowing at the front end how we were going to measure the results. And it's working just, you guys know what an optimist I am. This is better than even I thought it was going to be, which is something. So how are we doing on the triple aim? In terms of improved health, we have doubled the number of self-reported healthy days for some very complex clients. These are folks who are really complex. They have like 14 health conditions on average. They come into the clinic, many of them reporting 0 healthy days. Now, healthy days is a measure developed by the CDC. I love it. It's elegant. It just literally asks the client, how many days in the last month were you healthy? Through the patient's lens. You know, all the technical clinical measures are great, and we need those too. But this notion of how do patients define their own health is pretty darn powerful. So we have a lot of people coming into this clinic saying, I had 0 healthy days last month. The average on entrance to the clinic is 7 days. After 6 months, that's up to 14 days. That is measurable in anybody's scale of the actual impact on people's health and lives. Reduced cost, because we knew that folks weren't getting the primary care they need, and they have all these conditions that people with disabilities with 14 conditions are very susceptible to an infection, spinning out of control quickly. You don't have a week to figure out a UTI in a person with a spinal cord injury. You've got a day. So we knew that the really proactive access to primary care was huge in terms of improving quality and cost. And indeed, we've dropped the cost of hospitalization for the folks on Medicaid in this clinic, about 120 of them, 75%. Huge. $3 million in hospital costs that we saved the state Medicaid program. And they agree with that number, by the way. And they've tried to poke holes in it every which way from Sunday. So this works this is a better way to deliver care. It's also hugely more cost effective to do things right on the front end and keep people out of the hospital. Improved client experience. Folks love this clinic. 97% of them would recommend this clinic to their friends in similar situations. And again, it's just a huge win. And it's not just a win for the clinic. The reason this works is because it's grounded in Courage Center's philosophy and our expertise in knowing how to work with people with disabilities to help them, navigate these large, complex systems. The clinic folks can, refer people into health, wellness, and fitness, into ILS, into other therapies. It's the whole gestalt of courage that makes this powerful, and that's why it's a victory for all of us, not just for the primary care clinic. But this is so core to kind of our whole vision of the role we want to play in the future. That's why I keep holding it up as one of those moments in an organization's history that really is an inflection point for showing what is it that we're all about and what is the value that we really produce. Now I'm going to just kind of talk about partnerships. It's important to kind of understand, well, why is developing a strategy for partnerships on our agenda for this year? This is one of the biggest things that I, as the CEO, owe the board by the end of this year is what are we going to do differently with partners going forward, because there's just a big need for us to be thinking about how we're going to structure our economics differently. We've already talked about the fact the environment's very challenging. Our cost structure, the budget deficits that we've been running, our cost structure is really, really high. Why? Because we have a lot of wonderful programs that are pretty small that have been built over time to serve a pretty specific niche of the population, pretty specialized stuff. Add up all that pretty small programming aimed at pretty complex clients who are underfunded, and you've got an economic challenge. And the cost structure of that is quite high relative to the revenue. And the bad news is we know more payment cuts are coming. This whole fiscal cliff thing people are talking about federally, the need to drastically cut Medicare and Medicaid at the federal level, at the state level, and probably raise revenue at some point when we politically can kind of get our heads around the size of the challenge. There's no way to balance the state budget or the federal budget without significantly redesigning Medicare and Medicaid. So it's either going to be more rate cuts, which we cannot afford, or benefit cuts, which our clients can't afford, or new structures like the healthcare home that create very, very different incentives. That's equally true for social services. This is not just about the healthcare side. This is about paying for results in ILS, in VOC, someday hopefully in health, wellness, and fitness as well. Those different models, being able to do healthcare home, taking healthcare home to the next step, that primary care clinic, requires us to figure out, okay, how are we going to work more closely with hospitals, with other specialists, the folks that wrap around these same clients. So taking advantage of the new models is going to require that we work really differently with other parts of the continuum. We know we need, whether we're talking information systems or other administrative systems in HR or in data analysis or what have you, we need more capability in our administrative and information systems. More capability, cheaper. We got to have better and cheaper administrative structures and technologies and tools and processes than we have. We need capital to fund the electronic health record, to deal with our pent-up needs in our buildings, our physical infrastructure, and our people. And we cannot do everything that we want to do for our mission unless we can figure out a way to get a pretty significant capital infusion into the organization. There's also big potential to take our innovations to scale if we can figure out how to partner. How to take the highly specialized therapy programs that we do, the innovative programming we've built, and I'm not just talking healthcare home, I'm talking the specialized therapy programs, the ILS program, VOC, sports and rec. We've got just an incredible array of health and wellness activities for people with disabilities. But to be really bringing that capability and working with partners to make those services larger and more available to the whole community. And again, I stress with this whole conversation with the board started over the fact that Courage's secret sauce, our formula, for 80 years has been a budget that is over 1/3 dependent on philanthropy. That is too much to count on, being able to raise that much philanthropic money in any one year to keep the full scope of what we want to do here. So that's why we've got some compelling economic reasons, but also some compelling mission reasons to say we can't quite be so on our own in a silo, if you will. We've got to figure out how we connect to the hospital system, the physician system, the social service support system, how we can deal with. I hope that was something else funny and not me, but but share if it's good. That's the hazard of the speakerphone. So and the need to just kind of get more administrative capability and cost reduction. So that's why the board is saying this is the time to figure out partnership strategies. So let's talk about a couple of examples. The first, there is, and this is just huge kudos to the folks at St. Croix, who've had a vision literally for 10 years about how they'd like to do pediatric programming differently, to link therapies and the educational supports for children with special needs, and younger children particularly, and their families. So we've been our partner with the St. Croix School District and the special ed programming over there. There's a new building opening this fall, and we are moving our pediatric services into that new building for kids under 8. So the peds therapies are going to be co-located in this cool new integrated service center for kids and families. It's a better model of delivering care for these kids and their families. It also opens up a pretty cost-effective way for us to grow. St. Croix is busting at the seams in terms of clients and access to physical space, particularly during some hours of the day. So we didn't have to pay the money to build this big building. We're leasing it at very favorable rates. I mean, not that there's no risk here, because this is all, if this is a good economic deal, we're going to have to backfill the pediatric space at St. Croix with new strategies, new growth that is beneficial growth, profitable growth, that meets a market need and helps, kind of balance our economics. But it's really cool, innovative thinking. These are not small bets that we're placing here. We're taking some risks, some calculated risks, to do things very differently. So that's a victory. The Courage Camps and Friendship Ventures discussion, which has been going on for well more than a year now, how to build a stronger camping program. And that is all about being willing, even in something as core to our identity and our historic mission as camping, to say we need to figure out a way to protect the services. And the trajectory we've seen in the last few years, not just us, but in the camping industry overall, a lot of pressures. And we wanted to be proactive about that. Say, well, we're not going in the right direction in terms of participation in our camps and the financial performance. So we got to figure out a new way to do this. And we wanted to partner, collaborate, rather than compete with the other major disability-serving camping organization in the community. We figured we'd be stronger together than continuing to try to compete over what's frankly, a market share that now has more choices. And we celebrate that. It's great that kids and adults can go to other camps besides ours that are at least to some degree accessible. It's different than it was 55 years ago when we first opened our camps. So we said we're better off collaborating than competing, which I absolutely think in the nonprofit sector, we're going to see a whole lot more of that. Agencies with very similar missions coming together. The market is not large enough to sustain all the nonprofits that there are today. That's just a fact. And you hear, and United Way is now putting out significant grants to agencies specifically to do this, because the United Way knows the community is not going to be able to support the current nonprofit infrastructure. So that is, this is a big decision week. We've been working hard on this. The idea is, camping services are still going to be part of the Courage Continuum. We're still going to be in the business of designing and helping to deliver camping programs. We're creating a new company. We're putting Friendship Ventures and Courage Camps together in a new company that's all about that set of services specifically. We're not going to control that company. We're half of it in terms of forming it and the board, but it's going to be really running that business going forward. So that new entity is going to run the camps. Our role is going to be to continue to help design and deliver and fund, in a philanthropic sense, some of the unique programming that we do at Courage Camps. So how are we doing during the year? So those are a couple examples of big change, courageous change in terms of both our staff and our boards being willing to say it's mission first, how are we going to keep delivering the mission, but be willing to consider some very, very different models for how we deliver the services. How are we doing? So after our first 3 quarters, we're running at an operating loss of about $2 million. We're about $300,000 behind where we should be in the operating fund at this point in the year, but that's $361,000 better than it was last year. So that's certainly progress. It's not quite where we want to be or need to be. Revenues are about $800,000 under budget and $500,000 under last year. So we've got $500,000 less to work with coming in the organization than we did a year ago, which again, we knew it was going to be a tight year, but we thought it'd be closer to 0, not negative 500 in terms of the revenue side. But expenses, and folks are working really hard to live within this revenue reality. Our expenses are about $500,000 under budget, and look at this, $800,000 less than last year. So we've taken $800,000 of expense out of the organization to try to deal with this reality. And that's come from a lot of hard work all over the organization and sacrifice. We're all part of what is producing that. Healthcare programs, by which we mean all the kind of the clinical services, the things that kind of get billed under healthcare reimbursement. So, the OT, PT, speech, mental health services that roll up to the healthcare division, if you will, inpatient and outpatient, including the physician services. All of that is pretty darn close to budget. That's only $150,000 behind budget, fully $650,000 better in economic performance than last year. That's pretty huge. Outpatient volumes are up a titch from last year, but not quite as much as we had thought in the budget. The inpatient program has had almost a $300,000 improvement due to a lot of restructuring in that program, a lot of cost cutting, really streamlining, so very hard work, again, dealing with reality there. $187,000 in expense reduction in the administrative structure just within the therapy management areas. $130,000 better in the pain program due to more patients coming through that program, our success in getting the health plans to refer more people into the pain program, which is a key. In other programs and services, so kind of the non-healthcare stuff, which is VOC, ILS, drivers, sports and rec, camp, those things there, and there's some ups and downs at the individual program level, but as a group, the non-healthcare stuff is pretty close to budget. our challenges are really in the fundraising arena. General operating fundraising, meaning the philanthropic dollars that just come into the annual budget, is about $400,000 behind budget. And really concerning, it's $336,000 less than last year at this time. So again, just the whole charitable giving arena continues to be very, very challenging. Now the good news is, the better news is, we are raising more money in total than we did last year. We're just about right on budget in terms of all funds. And what do I mean by all funds? A lot of donors are giving money for capital, for major equipment in the clinic or elsewhere, the ABLE program. They're restricted funds, though, for a certain purpose. Or they're giving bequest gifts to the Courage Foundation. So we got more money coming in from the community. It's just not hitting the annual budget. So that's kind of an issue of where donors are choosing to give, especially larger gifts. People aren't just writing, kind of undifferentiated big checks to Courage Center like they maybe did in the past. They're writing a big check for the equipment in ABLE, or for the, equipment in the center, or specialized equipment in the therapy programs, which don't flow to the annual budget quite the same way. So that's a challenge. Cards and gifts, that's a big driver right there. It's $300,000 less than budget. But we've talked about this before. Because of that reality, we've already restructured that program, and we've essentially outsourced it. So a for-profit company that does this for other charitable organizations as a part of what they do is going to essentially run our Courage Cards operation, and we're going to get the royalties. So we've taken a lot of costs out. There still will be Courage Cards in the market. It's still a valuable thing for community awareness and as a revenue source, but we couldn't be in the business the same way. So by year end, that gap will be closed. Health insurance costs, another thing. $300,000 over budget for healthcare. That's not something we can control. That's prices of healthcare going up. It's also use of healthcare services being higher this year than our budget. So that's another driver of why we're behind budget. So we've got 2 more months, essentially. The board is still expecting us, and we're still saying we think we can come in at our year-end budget target. Was a deficit not to exceed 1.9 million, but we got some red or at least yellow flags. Whether we meet this or not, it's going to depend on, can we have a better fourth quarter in fundraising in the annual budget? And we're working hard to try to close some of that gap. June was not a good month in terms of therapy volumes. What we don't know is that predictive of a trend that's going to last for the next few months, or was that kind of an anomaly? Folks are digging into that. And again, healthcare costs are happening. So we probably are not going to see a miraculous different fourth quarter on the healthcare cost side. To deal with that, we're going to have to be, again, continuing to control every discretionary dollar that we spend in these next few months. So more to come on that. We're already doing a good job, but we're going to have to keep being extremely parsimonious about anything discretionary that we're spending in these next couple months to deal with these risk factors. This is a picture that is about 2013, and I know you can't read all that, but it's just illustrative. Kind of starting from the end, we owe our board the 2013 budget on September 24th, I believe, or 27th. So working backwards from that, we got to go through the board finance committee. We've got to bring them an early forecast. So all that work has begun. Managers and directors, and I'm sure all work groups do it a little, their own way in terms of how you look at the trends and the factors and the suggestions coming from the department level about what the budget targets should be. But that's going to vigorously be worked on the next few weeks here. So we'll have a sense, really in probably 3 weeks, 2 weeks from now, what does it kind of look like in 2013 if we roll forward what we're seeing today, and what else do we have to do to deal with the reality that we need to have a balanced budget in 2013. So that's just to kind of tell you what's coming in the next month or so. And that's all that I wanted to kind of present at you, leaving some time for open questions, discussion. Well, let's start with the questions. anything you want to raise. And folks on the phone, please feel free to ask to be recognized on the phone. And then, depending on how we do with the questions, I'd love to hear a few more success stories from your point of view. I know there are a couple people in the room that have stuff they could share. Questions first, either on what I just presented or anything I didn't address. Christian.
It's great kind of seeing, I really like seeing the numbers, kind of, how well we're doing, or, if we're behind, even if we were behind on something, we're still better off than we were last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess my concern is that, I think last year when we did the employee forums, we talked about the 1.9 deficit this year and the 0 next year was the goal.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we're kind of coming in pretty hot and really close to even being able to hit 1.9. And so my concern is, if we're struggling with 1.9, how on earth are we going to hit 0?
Yeah, I don't know if folks on the phone could hear that. The question is, so in good memory, we've talked at prior employee forums about cutting the deficit essentially, not quite in half, but cutting the deficit a lot in 2012 from where it was last year is a lot of hard work. Next year, we need to hit break even. If we're in danger of not hitting the 2012 goal, how in the world are we going to hit the break even goal in 2013? It's a very fair and good question, and that just sort of underscores sort of the reality of there aren't a lot of easy things to be done. I mean, I think we've done a lot of I won't even call them easy. They all have consequences. But what we've done is deferred a lot of stuff to the future. I mean, capital, is a big thing that we've got. We don't always have control. I mean, someday the roof is going to, leak more than it does, or the boiler's going to go, or the something, and you have to deal with safety issues and regulatory issues. So we're sort of living on borrowed time in terms of pushing off too much capital. But we will continue to. We've taken a lot of non-staff expense out of the budget. I think close to $1.5 million, right? In just figuring out how to do things differently in printing and but there too. I mean, some of the reductions in those things are things like really cutting back a lot on travel and education, which are a concern to folks because you need to keep investing in your people. The foregoing a salary increase this year. I mean, that's shared sacrifice all over the organization. We can't do that forever. So, unfortunately, that hitting a break-even budget is going to mean, some programmatic reductions. It's going to mean, some staffing reductions, and that's just that's a reality that we just have to. I mean, I'd be kidding you if I said, oh, there's a way to do this that isn't going to mean reduction. So that's some of what we need to identify in the next couple of years or months, is what are the strategies for hitting break even. Again, I will say that's part of why the partnership discussions are so important, because that could change, some of the cost trajectory and some of the growth potential. If we had a platform for performing in a different way. So more to come on that, because it's both things. I mean, there are some things that could be very helpful in some of the partnership strategies that would affect the budget, not quickly, but that would be a piece of the strategy. And if that isn't a piece of the strategy, then the downsizing, quite honestly, is just that's a larger challenge.
I've asked 4 different people about the CME grant and what it covers.
The CMS grant?
The CMS grant?
Uh-huh.
And I've gotten 4 different answers. So you don't have to necessarily go on what it's going to cover now, but it would be nice to have another person there.
Yeah, I thought we did, but it must not be enough. If there, wasn't there?
I know, yeah.
Something,
I'm
yeah.
interested in that. And then just in general, the physician clinic.
Yeah.
I hate, this is a really strong word, but they're sort of a silo up to themselves with Encourage, and that we really need to build better relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, both ways.
Excellent point. I totally agree with
I
you.
have trouble getting orders. I mean, it's not that
Yeah.
there's attitudes about signing orders, but organizationally,
Yep.
How we get them back or how we get them.
Yep.
I have to hang out down.
Excellent questions both. So one question is, so the CMS grant, this healthcare home grant, that's a big deal. We're getting a ton of national attention. But what is it? We need more clarity about what's the money going to pay for. And and Pat's going to help me follow up on this, but to re-look at the sheet that is on CourageNet that explains, the grant, what it does, what the outcomes, what we have to deliver, and what we're going to get in terms of some funding support to just continue to, to build and grow the model. It basically, the short story is it does not by itself, cure the budget deficit. What the grant from CMS does is allow us to make the program more robust. It's going to allow us to put in a particular new program that helps patients kind of self-manage and engage in chronic conditions. So that's a piece. It's going to give us the ability to have patients in the clinic have access to ILS services, even if they're not on waivers, because we really believe, that that's a nice synergy between ILS and primary care. It's going to enable us to expand the use of telemedicine, so more telehealth inside the clinic to better manage some of these complex conditions. It doesn't actually pay for the primary care services, so that isn't, it doesn't do that. But and actually part of the grant that we need to deliver within 3 years is a payment methodology that the state and the health plans have worked with us to say, so we're saving a boatload of money, but we're losing money in the clinic today. We need to be paid, in some way that reflects the value that we're creating in these health gains and in the cost avoidance. So that's a part of the grant is to fund, some of the time and the analytics to keep on building that case. So we'll make sure that the fact sheet is, you can find it, because it may be there but not obvious where to get it. Maybe it's in the wrong tab or something, and we'll make sure that it's, clear about what it is and isn't. Then the second part of the question was about the clinic. It's really, it adds tremendously to our continuum. It's strategically very key to the future, but it's very separate. It feels very separate. And I will tell you, the clinic folks feel the same way. So you said it exactly right. It's a two-way thing. They don't feel, understood or supported by the larger organization, and the larger organization doesn't feel that it's easy to understand what's going on there. So that actually is it's a key near-term priority to be really just putting some more support and structure around around the clinic and how it fits. And so that's something that Pam and I are actually working on right now, is how do we better support and integrate some of those clinic operations.
Just a couple of thoughts to build on Jan's question. I'm assuming that the mic is on, Steve? Okay. So the first question on, what is the CMS funding for? I think to Jan's explanation, think of it as we started a healthcare home model, and we have to mature how it works. And that money is intended to help mature how it works. Then operationally, we have to mature how it fits into our full rehabilitation continuum. And, coming into this role, 4 months into it, that's what Deb Salas and I have been doing. We're working with John, Cheetah, and Jan to do just that, because we recognize it's not integrated. So it's not only not integrated in terms of the components of the healthcare home, and that's what the grant's going to help us do, so that we mature the model, and then we can, obviously have a product that can have much more far-reaching capability within the community that we want to serve. Beyond that, though, we have to be integrated within Courage, and it's not there. So more to come on that. You'll hear more about that in the next couple of weeks in terms of our plan to address that.
And I didn't introduce her. Anybody who maybe in the room who hasn't met Pam in person, this is Pam Lindemoon, our Executive VP of Operations.
Thanks, Jan.
Thank you, Pam. Great question. Thanks. Others? Or on the phone? Anybody on the phone have a question while you guys think? Okay, well, chime back in if you do. Yeah. Okay, you get a second one then.
I was going to share a picture too.
Excellent.
Okay. Well, two things. One, I went to the opening of the Heritage Park. Did I get that right? Heritage Park? And I saw the aquatic therapy thing, and that was just incredible. Like, just watching, if anyone has been there, I strongly advise you to go down there and watching the pool and the lift up. It's just incredible, options there for people. And just talking to a lot of people there when I was at the open house, just really impressed with that much.
Yeah, thank you. That's Yeah. Thanks. Christian's mentioning that the Heritage Square, here's another, and we could have easily put that up as another example of a new model where we're delivering therapy services in a senior housing complex that a lot of other partners are part of too. So there's a community clinic providing broader health services, there's Y, there's us, there's, and it's nested in a, a housing and rehab, long-term housing continuum. And the Minneapolis Housing Department is, this is their baby, and they've been working on it again for a decade. And they're just really, really grateful that Courage is part of that service continuum in this senior-oriented housing that's that's serving an important and underserved lower income end of the senior continuum. So that is another bright spot. Did you want to say more about the clinic, or?
I didn't. I had one more thing on the successes, and that was just in terms of all the advocacy efforts that people help with. One of the things we were able to get done this year was medical assistance for employed person with disability, MAEPD, which Folk Services probably has a big thing. The short version of it is that it's a program that allows people to keep their MA eligibility but be able to work and accumulate more assets. The problem with the program is that you age out at 65 whether you want to or not. And we were able to remove that age limit this year and remove the asset limit. So if you're ever on MAPD, no longer will you age out. And also those assets that you kind of accumulate while you're on that program, they don't come under the scrutiny that just straight medical assistance does. And it's something that's been a problem for years and years. And because we had a little bit of a surplus this year, we were able to fix. So I thought that was a, really good news for, it's a small population that will age out, but it makes a huge difference to them. So.
That's great. Thank you, Christian. And that's also just sort of a nice reminder that that's one of the really important roles we play in this community is as an advocacy leader and building consortium and coalitions with others to advocate for things. And we advocate for stuff that's that it's all related to our continuum, because our continuum is very comprehensive. But it's not just about what does MA pay us, as important as that is. It is very much about housing policy, transportation policy, employment policy, education policy, that our advocacy agenda is way bigger than our quote unquote self-interest as an organization. And that's one of the things we're really proud of. That's a big part of why we're here, is to be advocating for the conditions in the community, not just the conditions in Courage Center. So I'm glad you mentioned that particular example. Kristen.
Strong Workplace Survey. We took one last year, which set the goals for 2012. Could you address how those goals were met, what the issues were, and what happened in the past year to meet them, so we can feel good about telling you what we want you to do next year?
Thank you. So the question is, so what did you do with the employee survey results last year? Actually, we haven't done the Strong Workplace Survey for a couple of years now. What we have been doing is the snapshots, the quarterly short things. One of the biggest things that came out about last year or midsummer last year when we were doing the very same thing, saying what are employees saying are big issues, a big concern was internal communications. We don't know enough about what's going on. We feel a lot of stress. We know there's big pressures. We don't know what we're doing, as an organization to try to respond to those pressures. So we have, I'm not going to say we're all the way there, but we've put a fair amount of effort into trying to improve employee communications. We've changed up, the sort of the management committee architecture, made it more clear, kind of who's doing what, and trying to, and again, we're on a journey here, but the management committees that exist have as part of their responsibility a big communication obligation to be cascading the information in their part of the organization in a more cohesive way. Putting up the measures of success scorecards, having the Q&A thing on CourageNet, having the lunch sessions that we have. We're all, and just trying to, continue to just put more intentionality into our employee communication strategy was a big thing that we did this year, and we'll see. One of the questions is, has internal communication improved? So we hope to get some measurement of that was a big priority last year. It certainly wasn't the only priority. I don't know that Deb's in the room. Pam, can you help me with any other things you can think of that were sort of concrete directly from the employee surveys?
Well, as you said, I don't think we've done the actual large workplace engaged survey that we're going to do, and I wasn't here, but we did taking the pulse several times. The only other thing, other than the recap you provided, Jan, that I can recall is the optimization committee work that's part of IT, because a strong piece of feedback that you all gave is the tools and things are still not in place from an IT perspective. And we recognize that. We also recognize that it requires funding to really invest in a completely different IT infrastructure, such that that's why another reason the partnerships are such a critical discussion for us in terms of understanding where we could leverage electronic health record by partnering with someone. In the meantime, though, we've got to try to fix some of those things that get in the way of doing your work today. And so the optimization committees were formed. And as Jan said, we've made great progress. Still have a lot more that we can do in that area. That would be another example.
Kathy, can you remember anything from an HR perspective out of the surveys? Those are two big ones, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard great things about the luncheons. I mean, the feedback has been really very positive, but you'll continue them and look at ways to expand it.
Yeah. And actually, yes, and here's another example of we need to do a better job of promoting this because they're open. I mean, folks who want to come can just say, I'd like to come to a luncheon because we definitely intend to continue to do that.
And just by way of reference, they're called sharing perspectives.
Yep.
So when you see that,
lunch. If you're interested, just sign up. We may not get to you that month, but that would be wonderful. They have been once a month, yeah. Just a once a month informal lunch, no PowerPoints, no agenda. It's more of like this, what we're doing now, just free and more tends to be, honestly, a little more pointed in a smaller group. People feel able, and that's a good thing. That's great to ask a more pointed question and to hear from each other. I mean, what I really like, and I like the new format for employee forums, that it's more, all parts of the organization, mixing simultaneously, not so much in our separate silos. Other successes, Nancy, I'd like to ask you if you could say a word about the SHARE program in just a sec, but are there any other things people want to offer, either question or a success story?
Question.
Yes.
My family and I had the opportunity to spend this past week in Courage North, and it was so nice. I've never been there before, so I'm really excited about it. So with the partnering, is there a possibility that will open up again? And
I'm so glad you asked that question. For employees who have been able to use our camping facilities for your own purposes, for family, family camp is a cool thing to do, and renting our own camp is helpful to the cause too. So this is about Courage North. It's way up there. It's near the headwaters of the Mississippi. It's past Brainerd or by Brainerd. I mean the Bemidji, excuse me. So it's a haul, but oh wow, is it something? I mean, it's just gorgeous. It's really pristine, and there's a great example. We have not been using Courage North for what it's intended to be used for the last couple of years because our camping volumes are so depressed. To try to save costs, we made a very didn't feel good on any level decision to say, well, we got to really cost conserve, so we're going to do all of our camping sessions at Maple Lake, which is just an hour west of here. So Courage North has been used only minimally for certain programs or rental groups. That's not really okay. I mean, that is such a gorgeous piece of property. We're supposed to be doing mission-related services there. So that's a real reason for the partnership is to say, okay, we've got some incredible properties that we want to have full and used for high-quality, innovative programming for people with disabilities. So coming together with Friendship, we're going to create a stronger camping organization that's going to make better use of those facilities. So that's not a trivial hope out of this deal. And Tom, Mimi, camp folks, if you're still on the phone, if you want to speak to that at all, or any other comments you'd like to make about the Friendship deal, please feel free.
No, we're still on the phone, and we're still working with the, like you said, with the Friendship group, and hopefully we'll have something settled up in the next couple of weeks, and we'll know where we're at. And we did look at Courage North. We are looking at, there's another meeting set up to really look at programming for Courage North for 2013. So it's still, there's still some availability for this year if people are interested. We can call the camping department and we'll see what we can do to get people up north.
Thank you, Tom. Boy, you only have to go once and then you'll want to go again. It's really special. Thanks, guys. Any other questions? And maybe Nancy, I'll just ask you to just a quick thing about the SHARE program.
All right. Sister Kenny is sponsoring an initiative within the organization they're a part of, which is Alignment Health, and it is around the acronym SHARE, which is Sports, Health, Activity, Recreation, and Exercise. And the initiative is going to be funded by their internal employee giving campaign or their community campaign, and they have invited Courage Center to partner with them to really shape that initiative. So for the initial meetings, Jeannie Olson and myself were part of a small group really to look at some of the existing health, wellness, recreation, sports programming, fitness programming for individuals with disabilities and identify where there are current and then potential future needs that could benefit from the dollars that are raised with their internal campaign. So for us, that was very exciting. I think it was a very clear acknowledgement on Sister Kenny's part about how important and critical the services are that Courage Center provides, not only with our medical rehabilitation services, but ongoing our community health, wellness, fitness, recreation, and sports services. So as we get closer to the large kickoff for their employee base, we'll be able to share more details. We're kind of in the initial shaping phases now, but exciting opportunity from our perspective.
Another partnership opportunity. Great. Thanks for sharing that. Well, we're at 10 or a couple minutes past. I know you've got busy days and clients, and I just appreciate your time very much. If you have other questions later, don't hesitate to shoot an email.